Okay, I think we're just going to go ahead and get started. I'll try and catch whoever joins in, and I'll let them come in whenever they're ready. Okay, so we've got a good amount of participants this morning. Some of you guys are part of LOMA, and some of you guys are not. So we did invite some friends and family to this workshop. So welcome to anybody who is not part of LOMA. Just a quick little intro. My name is Miss Aimee. I am the director here at Little Oaks Montessori Academy. A little bit of my background, I have been Montessori trained from birth to 3 years old for a long time. I think I'm approaching my 12th or 13th year now. And about 10 to 11 years of all of that, I have personally been a toddler lead teacher. So to say the least, I have had the opportunity to train and start toileting with many, many different children. So I have seen quite a bit. I've seen it all, I'd like to say, because every child is different. Every family dynamic is different. So we really had to become adaptive to the children, to the times that we're in. So since the first time that I started toilet training, things have progressed a little bit. They've definitely changed. I present this type of workshop at least twice a year to all of our families. So this time around, now that I've had all of that experience under my belt, plus training my own child at home, I have a little bit of a different perspective on toileting. So I hope it becomes very beneficial to all of you guys who are joining us today to catch some, just tips and tricks on how to either help your own child at home, your grandchild, your niece, your nephew, whoever it is that you have at home. And we also want to make this as interactive as possible. So if you're not familiar with Zoom, there is a little chat box option. So I muted every participant through the duration of this workshop. But if you have a question that pops up at any time during the workshop, please just type it in the chat box. And towards the end during our Q&A, I'd be happy to answer them, or just kind of create a write-up of all the questions that you guys asked and share it with everybody at the end of our YouTube recording. So this is going to be recorded, and I will post it on our school YouTube channel, hopefully by the end of today or possibly sometime tomorrow. And I'll share the link for that as well. So let's get started. I hope you guys can see my screen. It's obviously the topic of good old toileting. I like to call it toilet training, not really potty training. That's just kind of the lingo that I'm used to, but it's your generic, just potty training. So let's go ahead and, wow, everyone keeps on coming. I'm glad we have a lot. All right, let's see here. I don't even know. There you go. It's a little bit slow, I think, now. All right, so the first thing I think that comes to everybody's mind when we're talking about toileting is, what are the signs? When do I know that my child is really ready to start toilet training? If you go on Google, which I know is everybody's best friend right now, you're going to get a plethora of information. You don't even know what to read or what to believe at this point on when do I start toilet training with my child. So from what we have done here at Little Oaks and from my personal experience, the three main signs of readiness that we really like to see from our children are: one, their diaper stays consistently dry, mainly during the day. Nighttime doesn't really count right now. We're really focusing on certain increments at a time. The child either communicates verbally or non-verbally. That's very important to take note of, that their diaper is either soiled and they want to change it, or they're uncomfortable. And I want you to make note of if the child is verbally or non-verbally communicating that, because we really don't think that a child should be held back from a developmental milestone like starting toilet training if they're not speaking, because communication comes in many different forms. So we just want to make sure that our child is able to express their uncomfortableness, if they want to change their diaper, if they want to, try and sit on the toilet, whether they're verbally saying it or if they're just pointing to it, or if they're grabbing your hand and escorting you to the bathroom, those are all signs that they're communicating their toileting needs to you. And the last sign that we really want to look for is, are they consistently using the toilet? So for example, whether they're using it on their own or by adult initiation. A couple days in a week, 2 weeks go by, and every time they sit on the toilet, both with us and at home, they're actually urinating. They're actually having a BM on the toilet. That's a great sign that they're understanding the purpose of the toilet and that they're able to control their own body. So those 3 signs are the main signs that we really look for in all of our children when we really, kind of say, hey, they're pretty much on the same page to start toileting. So we like to call this their special window. It seems like it's a lot of pressure that if a child isn't showing all of these signs simultaneously, or we miss all of these signs that, maybe our toileting journey has come to a halt. I don't want it to sound like it's, it's the deal breaker for when you start toileting, because it's not. It's really just the 3 general signs for the average child on when we really do want to look into toilet training with them. And the other question, like I said, I just answered, do they have to be verbal? And the other question that I always get is, how old does the child have to be? There's no answer to that question by any means. What I have noticed, though, in the last couple years, I have noticed that the average age for the child who starts toilet training has definitely gotten older. A couple years ago, at least over 5 years ago, I think it was more common for the younger child, like 18, 19, 20 months old, to be prepared, to be ready and start toileting. I don't know if it's maybe the environmental factor of the pandemic or just kind of where we are now as a society, that we've definitely noticed that children aren't quite ready yet to start toileting until they're at least around 2. So between the 2 to 2.5 age range is definitely the more average age that we've been seeing for those children that are starting toileting and having more success in a timely manner. But again, we don't want the age to be something that will stop you from starting toileting. It's, again, really just kind of considering all those above signs of readiness to get your child started. So let's see. So there are some exceptions to these 3 signs of toileting. Now, for instance, especially in a school setting like ours, where we have a child that is around 2, 2.5, and there really were no signs. We weren't seeing anything. Maybe we saw 1, but then it wasn't paired with the other 2. There's many different reasons. But we do have to make it a goal to ensure that we're having our children meet these developmental milestones before they're able to move up to the next level. So for all of our children that are toddlers in our CC community now, our goal is to get the child 90% toilet trained before they move up to what we call our primary program, which are children from about 3 to 6 years old, so preschool. So there are some exceptions that we do have to make for children that aren't necessarily showing all of these signs, that haven't started toileting at around 2 or 2.5. So if they're really aging out of our toddler classrooms, we do have to take that into consideration and just use that as hey, we've just got to really help get this child going. So it does take a little bit more work on our part as the adult, especially if that child isn't internally already showing those signs. But it does happen and there is still success. So I don't want those signs to discourage you. But there are, some times where we do have to make the decision for the child and decide that, hey, we've really got to get this toileting going. We've had some children that are, a little over 2.5, slowly approaching 3 in 2 months. And they were still in diapers. but with consistency at home and at school, and just that, that encouragement from us, they were able to really just grasp a hold of the whole concept without having any of those signs on their own. So it is possible, it definitely is doable, but we definitely want to make sure we catch that window to make it easier, mainly for them, because they're clearly showing us that they're ready. So that's going to be the easiest time to do it. Other exceptions are, for example, if the older child, if they're just not able to follow directions and follow through with them, then of course that's going to be a tougher obstacle to get through if we wanted to get them trained in toileting as well. But again, we can start a child with the toileting process if, they're able to use the toilet every time we ask them to, every time we, have them come with us as a routine, and on command, they successfully use the toilet. If they're not initiating it, that's fine. As long as they're able to successfully urinate every 30 minutes to an hour that we take them, then there's definitely some possibility that we'll have some progress there in the toileting journey. So those are some exceptions that we have in case we have some children that don't meet those signs of readiness. So once we decide as a whole that the child is ready to start the process of toileting, what exactly does the process entail? So I always like to say, when your child's teacher, whoever is their main caregiver with the parents, both come together and decide, hey, all of these signs are consistent at home and at school, let's get the process going. It's all or nothing. And when I say it's all or nothing, I'm saying that it's really time to jump right into cotton underwear and no more diapers, except during certain times, which I'll get into in just a couple minutes. And when I say all or nothing, I also mean avoiding trial periods. I know it can kind of be, a back and forth, kind of like a game, trial and error when it comes to early childhood development. They go through so many ups and downs with their milestones. So sometimes I have families that say, hey, let's give it a try. I think they're ready. I'm not quite sure. Let's try underwear this weekend. It was a mess. The parents gave up. The child was having tantrums. So they just kind of exit and they go back to diapers after 4 days. Please avoid doing that, mainly for your child's benefit. They only understand the current time and what is happening right now. So if you introduce something as large as taking away their diaper and expecting them to go all of a sudden a couple times a day to urinate or have a BM in the toilet just in one day, you're flipping their world upside down. So you want to make sure that when you make such a huge decision like that, you really want to stick to it. Otherwise, if you start that process and then you go backwards and you go back to diapers, you're going to leave their perception of toileting, toilet, diapers, underwear, all discombobulated, even after that one attempt. So that's why I highly recommend, if you ever feel that you're ready to start toileting at home, please touch base with your caregiver or your teacher first to ensure that they're showing the same signs and that they agree that your child is ready to start, because your child does spend a lot of time with us. Whether at school or a home daycare, wherever your child is, they're spending majority of their week with us. So we want to make sure we're on the same page, that we can help support you guys and you guys can help support us when we start a huge process like this. So I hope that makes sense. I don't want it to sound, I don't want it to come off as, hey, you have to do this, or, it's really beneficial for your child, because you have to really understand the capacity of their brain development and the brain level that they have right now. So really focusing on one task at a time and being consistent with it is definitely the way to go. So when you do communicate between, the other adults in your household and your teachers or your caregivers. Then they're going to get into an open discussion of this exact process of what we do at school, what's expected of you guys at home. And we also provide handouts. So I personally have handouts that I share with all of our toddler teachers and any of our families. So if you guys would like to have a copy of that, please either let your lead teacher at LOMA know or just go ahead and email me directly and I'll send you guys a copy. But with that, when you guys start, it's cotton underwear and that's it. On the next slide here, I'll kind of describe exactly what happens at home, because it's the same exact thing that we will do when they are with us. So the actual process, when we decide that your child is ready to start the toileting process, we do want you guys to start it at home over a typical 2-day weekend, or if a long weekend is coming up, that's even better. Just so you have that extra day or two to focus on this process. So when you're at home and you guys decide to start the underwear, you're going to have the child solely just wear cotton underwear at home. As soon as they wake up, remove that diaper, have them sit on the toilet, see if anything happens, and then put them straight into cotton underwear. From that first time that you put them on the toilet, you're going to have to time yourself, wear a watch, do whatever you need to do, that about every 30, maybe 40 minutes, you're going to take the child to the toilet. And you're going to do that the entire day until they go to sleep. It sounds excruciating. Trust me, it is. I did it with Grayson at home, but you really have to get a weekend where you have no other plans. You can have your spouse or someone else do the grocery runs for you. You can have someone else leave the house for you, but you specifically stay home and you have to focus on this process. When you are committed to this first weekend of toileting at home with you and your child, there's so much more success when you jumpstart the process this way, as opposed to being a little just kind of on and off when you first start the underwear. So definitely just designate a certain weekend where you can stay home all day Saturday, all day Sunday, have your child in cotton underwear and focus on taking them to the restroom about every 30 minutes. After they eat a meal or after they drink something, try and take them a little bit sooner. So about 15 minutes after they eat or drink. And then after that first day is through, you may have a lot of underwear. You may have a lot of dirty underwear. You may not. Every child's totally different. But you're going to repeat that same exact routine the next day. And at school, when you come back on Monday, that's exactly what we'll do. You'll bring them to school on that Monday in cotton underwear. You bring their whole closet with you, extra pants, extra socks, extra t-shirts, even a pair of extra shoes, some wet bags, and the teachers here will take your child to the restroom about every 30 minutes. Some of our teachers like to kind of even be more, shorter intervals and do like every 20 minutes. It really depends on kind of how the child is adapting to the routine. So when you think about it, when you put yourself in your child's shoes, starting this process, having to be told to use the toilet every 30 minutes, it's going to become annoying. And that's just the honest truth. You'll probably notice, especially depending on your child's personality, towards the end of this first day at home, your child may start refusing. Some may be willing, some may do it perfectly fine the entire weekend, but some children may just want to give up and resist after come midday. So what do you do in those situations? I always suggest you have to phrase the way that you tell your child to use the toilet in more of a command, not a question. Because naturally, whether it's toileting or not, children between the ages of 1 and 3, they're always going to answer no. So every time you ask a question, mainly if they're under 3, they just naturally say no. They have no idea what you said. Maybe they do understand you. Maybe they just don't want to answer you properly. They're always going to say no. So what happens? You create such a roadblock for yourself. So one of the most important things in this process is stating your commands to your child as a direction. Grayson, it's time to use the toilet. Grayson, let's go to the toilet. Instead of, Grayson, do you need to go pee? Grayson, do you want to use the toilet? He's going to say no. And then you're going to have to try and force it out of him to try and agree with you. And it makes the adult so stressed out. And I'm telling you, that's mainly what makes the adult want to give up. And that's kind of that's the situation with anything when you're dealing with a toddler, to be honest with you. So just kind of take that tidbit of advice when you're communicating with your child at home, really make it into a command and not much of a question. What happens if that doesn't work? You take next step number 2. Then you start looking at something else to kind of bring their attention to the bathroom. Hey, Grayson, let's go turn on the light. Grayson, go get your stool for the toilet. Or Grayson, do you want to turn on the light or do you want to turn on the fan first? Something like that. If you do have to ask a question, make it an option. Give them an option of something to do where you want them to do it. And that typically works because they want the say, they want the control. That's mainly why they start backing out and having tantrums, is because they want that initiation. So that approach typically works. So whatever way you end up using at home to get your child to use the toilet on a consistent basis every 30 minutes, is going to be your first 2 days of the toileting journey at home. Like I said, if you can do it over like a 3-day weekend, 4-day weekend, that's even better. Because obviously in a group care environment, we have multiple children. So as much attention as we give to them, it's just better to have that sole one-on-one time, focusing on the toilet with your child in a comfortable spot like your home. So that's how we highly recommend starting this process. And it just translates very easily over to your school and classroom environment. So once you come back after that weekend, you'll kind of give us a progress note of how your weekend went. And then we'll do the same exact thing that you guys did at home at school. And the first week is going to be fun. That's why the next slide is expectations. I'm sure once you start, especially if it's your first child, you're going to be so curious as to how did your child do? How many accidents have they had already? All sorts of questions are going to go through your mind. So the top thing that I like to recommend is set your expectations low. Even if your child had a phenomenal weekend, they only soiled their underwear once, maybe twice, just know that when they come back to a group care environment on a Monday, just set your expectations to, hey, it's a whole new environment. He's jumping into this, this process with 10 more children and 2 more adults. Let's see if he can, stick to under 10 to 15 pairs of dirty laundry a day. That sounds like a lot, but if you set your expectations to expecting 10 pairs of underwear and they come home with 5, hooray, we did it. You know what I mean? So that's something that for us as the adult, we mentally need that because I know every adult is different. So you don't want to beat yourself down for the lack of progress or the progress of your child. So you have to give yourself, especially the child as well, grace. It's a whole new journey for both you and your child. So you really have to take that into consideration, and we cannot beat up the child or yourself for the lack of progress that they show in the first couple days or couple weeks. So set your expectations low. You also have to know that soiled laundry, pants, bed sheets, socks, all the underwear, it will happen very often during the first few days or even the first couple of weeks when you guys start the toileting process. So you come pick up your child every afternoon, you see a humongous bag of laundry in the lobby to take home. Just again, make that as one of your expectations, and just know that that's going to be your life for a couple times. What is it, Terrell?
We're not seeing the slides that you're going to. You only see the cover.
Oh, you're not seeing any of the slides?
We can only see the cover image. So as you go through, we can't see you
Man.
going. Yeah, I was trying to get your attention.
Oh my goodness. Interesting. Okay, let me see if, I wonder why. How about now? No?
Go to the next slide.
Hold on, let me see. Nothing?
Nothing.
It says it's sharing, so I don't know why.
I would stop sharing and reshare and make sure you're sharing the right screen.
Let's see. Well, thanks. Sorry that took me forever to realize it.
No, it's all good. It happens.
Going and going. All right, let's see. Let's see if I can.
There we okay.
Okay, so then let me, yes?
Yes, we're on track now.
All right, so this will all be shared with you. Let me go back to the actual expectation slide that I was on. I'll share this whole thing, it's saved. So I'll either have printouts from my current LOMA parents to pick up in the lobby this afternoon, or I can email it to whoever leaves their email address in the chat box. I'm sorry, I had no idea that you guys weren't seeing any of that. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's see. So we were talking about expectations as far as what to expect during these first couple of days, first couple of weeks of the toileting journey. The other point that I want to make is that after you kind of have that expectation in your head about how much laundry you're going to have on a daily basis, you also want to make sure that you don't set a time frame in your head. I know you might have some friends, some family members, you Google something, whatever you read, every child is totally different. Every child, and this is in regards to all types of development and milestones that they go through, not just toileting, that you might compare your child to your friend's child. You might even compare your first child and your second child. We can't do that. Every single child is so different. So if you have some type of time frame set in your head that, hey, my child is going to be completely done with toileting in a month, what happens if he's not? What happens if she's not? Then you're setting yourself up for mental disappointment. And then your disappointment is, unfortunately, it's natural. No matter how hard you try, it's going to translate into how your child feels. They're going to feel it. They're going to sense that you're disappointed. They're going to feel your frustration, and it's just going to go downhill from there. So I really want you guys to just start this process with a clean slate, set all types of expectations low, and just know that you're doing it for yourself and obviously for your child, because children just naturally read people. No matter who they are, where they come from, they always read people. The energy they give off, the mental stress that they have, whether you show it or not, children feel it. So the last thing we want is for you guys to get frustrated as the adult because they're not meeting your expectations, and then it translates off to your little person. And we definitely don't want that. So what I do say is that typically once you start, we're going to look at, by the second or third week, since you started the toileting process, how much progress has your child really shown? Have they decreased their daily laundry by a little bit? Do they have no more laundry at all? You really have to gauge that. So by that second or third week, then we're able to kind of see what step do we need to take now. If there's been not much progress at all, they're still coming home with 10 pairs of underwear every day, there's not much success over the weekend, then we have to look at different steps to take. Something like shortening the intervals between toileting times. Is 30 to 40 minutes too long? Do they really not have that physical control of their bladder yet? Maybe. So start shortening it to about every 15 to 20 minutes for, half a day or the full day, and see how that goes. Or if you're wearing plastic covers, which I'll describe in a little bit, maybe we have to remove that. So those are little things that we have to think about. And that's definitely another discussion that you should definitely have with your teacher or your caregiver once the process starts. If there's not much progress, someone is going to come forward and say, hey, let's start looking at, option B. And as far as the last expectation that I want to share with you, BMs, bowel movements, going number 2. Every child, no matter, again, what family they're from, if they're a second child, first child, whatever it was, the BMs always take a long time for them to master. It's just part of the process. Imagine a child being so used to standing or hiding in a corner or squatting to have a bowel movement. And then all of a sudden, they're suddenly expected to be prompted to go sit on this big white thing and having to try and control all of that all of a sudden. It's difficult. Some children get it, some children don't. But on average, those bowel movements always follow behind. They're typically mastering the urinating in the toilet, and then the BMs follow. So again, that's very normal. I have so many stories that I want to share with you about the BMs, but we'll leave that for another time. But just know, again, keep that in your head that the BMs may take a little bit longer than them actually mastering the urinating in the toilet. So once we kind of get all of that in our head to really get prepared on this toileting journey, what do you actually need? So I have a couple links that I'll share with you on the next slide in case you want to buy the exact materials that I'm describing. But over the years, these are just the materials that I have found to be the most cost effective, and B, the ones that really tend to do the job pretty well. So when I first started this over 10 years ago, there used to be something called Potty Scotties and Potty Patties. So these were some popular training underwears that you would buy online, and these things were expensive, so expensive. It was like a pack of 6 for like $60. I'm like, who's paying $10 per pair for, something that's going to get soiled so often? But that's just kind of what was being used in the Montessori world back in the day. So I've definitely been able to find more adaptable underwear that does the trick. It's definitely more cost effective, and you can easily get it off like, Amazon or even at Walmart, something like that. So you'll definitely need thick cotton underwear. Your child does not go straight into, just basic Fruit of the Loom underwear or anything like that. It definitely has to be a little thick. And the purpose of that is so that when the child does urinate in their underwear, they're still having the capability of feeling what it's like to be wet. Our children, our young children, really strive off of sensory. So being able to feel the discomfort of being wet or having something trickle down their legs, they're very aware. Especially some children do not like it more than others. So it kind of gets the process going faster because they're kind of observing what's happening when they're urinating. When it happens, they feel something, they see something. So they're putting 2 and 2 together. Whereas in a diaper, they just kind of go and it kind of absorbs everything, and it gets heavy after a while, but they're not necessarily feeling that wetness that they will when it's a thick cotton pair of underwear. So that's why we recommend the thicker kind for the very initial beginning of the process. And then easy pull up and down bottoms. For example, it's summertime, so you can get those basic cotton jersey shorts for boys and girls off Amazon, Walmart, Target, something that doesn't have a button, something that doesn't have zippers, something that's very easy just to grasp around the waist and pull it up and down. If they pull it up halfway, it's still covering their bottom. They've got it on for the most part. That's the most important, so that they can independently start doing it. Or if they really need to go to the restroom, they don't have time to sit there and do buttons and zippers and things like that. So it's got to be very, very easy for them to remove themselves. For girls, I definitely don't recommend leggings especially if the leggings get wet, they're even harder to remove. So try to avoid the leggings and just do your basic loose cotton bottoms for both boys and girls. Plastic covers, the link is on the next slide as well. This is highly recommended for a school setting, mainly for sanitation and hygienic purposes. It's a waterproof kind of diaper cover that a lot of families use to cover like cloth diapers, but we can use these to cover their cotton underwear. This just helps to prevent any leakage from being excessive. And especially at our school right now, half of the classrooms are carpet. So obviously to help prevent the leaking all over the carpet and the cleaning and things like that, we highly recommend using the plastic covers until the child's accidents decrease over time. At home, this is completely up to you. It's your domain, so you kind of decide if you want to use it for home or just keep them strictly for school. And the last thing to bring are pads for our school cot. So obviously your child, I'm assuming, will still be napping if they're just starting the toileting process. So to help protect the bed sheets and things like that, just to kind of minimize the amount of laundry that goes home every day, we recommend putting some type of pad on top of the cot or even at your bed, even at your child's bed at home. Because even during nap time, we don't recommend that your child wears diapers. It's literally when their eyes are open and they're awake, they're wearing cotton underwear. And as soon as they go to sleep at night, you can put on a diaper or a pull-up on them. But something also for the pads, there's pads called Good Nights. They're pretty pricey. So we've always recommended just getting extra large puppy training pads, like a box from Costco. It's like under $20 and it'll last you a long time. So you'll also provide those when your child goes back to school, when they start toileting. Another little section that I like to cover with materials is cleaning stuff. So over the years, I've had many discussions about toileting with our families, and obviously now doing it now with Grayson at home, just trying to find the best cleaning solution. So to help clean the underwear and get the odor out, especially from urine, white vinegar is going to be your go-to. Because no matter how much you wash the underwear in the washing machine, sometimes that urine odor just does not come out, no matter how strong of a detergent you use. So white vinegar is definitely going to be a good option for stocking up at home when your child starts underwear, is just soaking it in some white vinegar and some OxyClean mixed together in hot water. And just within a couple hours, most of those stains and the odor comes out. And then you can then kind of squeeze it out and throw it into the washing machine. Blue Dawn soap, it's got to be the blue one. The Blue Dawn soap is also really good for stains as well, obviously with hot water. And there's also been something that multiple families of ours have recommended. It's a Dollar Tree item, but it's specifically a yellow cleaner. I think it comes in a spray bottle. It's like a degreaser, a sanitizer. It's like a multi-purpose cleaner that you can get from there. And they said it's done the trick. And these are also good cleaning options for just regular stains. Our toddlers get pretty dirty, whether they're playing outside, eating. So these items definitely help with just general and cleaning, but it's great for toileting. So as far as the materials, that's what we recommend. It's pretty simple. The thick cotton underwear you definitely need to stock up on, especially if especially if your child will be going through multiple a day. You'll be doing laundry every night, unless you buy a ton and just kind of do laundry, every other day. That's up to you guys. But you will need a good amount of each of those items. And the last point on materials is pull-ups. So you'll notice that pull-ups is not a recommended item on our materials list when we start toileting. And the reason for that is that we feel that pull-ups are the very same thing as diapers. The The mechanism of them is the only thing that's different. Is you can pull them up and pull them down. There's not much of like a Velcro aspect to it. But the feel and the sensation of a pull-up in a diaper are very, very similar. So like I mentioned before with the diapers, it absorbs a good amount of the urine or whatever it is that your child produces. So they're kind of ignoring it. They're not feeling much of that sensation like they do with the cotton underwear. So the pull-ups really aren't part of the actual process. Now, here's where, if you were attending some of my previous toileting workshops, you'll know that we were very anti pull-ups. No pull-ups ever. You can't use them. So here's the thing. We feel that now you can use pull-ups as a regular diaper. When your child is showing some of these signs, you catch it right on time, switch them to a pull-up. Remove the regular diapers and switch them to a pull-up, but you're not starting this actual toileting process quite yet. You're just using that as a transition from having an adult physically have to change the diaper for them to now the child being able to independently pull up and down their pull-up if they need to use the restroom. And then when we're really getting that down to a science, then you switch solely into cotton underwear. And the process has been a little bit quicker. I've noticed that just in the recent, past year, to be honest with you, with kind of seeing the children that we've had, was that they were using, they were big, so they couldn't fit in a size 6 diaper anymore. So they had to go to pull-ups. So then we noticed that with them using pull-ups, whether they were showing signs or not, they just started naturally getting into the habit of pretending like maybe they were underwear and using the toilet with the other children. So then from there, then we saw the signs. Then we transitioned them straight into cotton underwear, and they did really well. So that's kind of where we became a little bit more flexible just in recent times to say, hey, if we're going to use pull-ups, let's use them as a transitional factor, a transitional piece in the toileting process, going from a regular diaper to a pull-up and then straight to cotton underwear. But we cannot use the pull-up as the underwear. It's not going to work that way. So that's where we've kind of incorporated the use of pull-ups, and also using them during long car trips. When you're on vacation, it's summertime, going to the beach, the pool, things like that. It's perfectly fine to use them during that time, but you just have to know that once you get back into the swing of things, back into reality, back home, going back to school, you've got to try and start that process over to make sure that you stay consistent after that 3-day weekend of wearing pull-ups at grandma's house. Because believe it or not, it makes a big difference. A huge difference. I personally did it myself just over Memorial Day weekend. I was brave enough to start toileting with my son about 2 weeks before Memorial Day weekend, knowing that I had plans to travel and be in the car. So he had a diaper on. He was like, I was like, I need to go pee-pee. I need to go pee-pee. And we were stuck in traffic on Route 50. And I'm like, you're just going to have to go. So then I had in my head, I'm like, you know what, as soon as we get back home on Monday, everyone invited us to a family barbecue, whatever it was, but I had to decline it all. So that Monday before we returned back to school, I had to solely focus on his toileting to make sure he wasn't a mess when he went back to school for that remainder of the week. So that's on our part. If you want to use the diapers and pull-ups in the middle of this toileting process, just know that you have to do a little bit extra work once you get back into your daily routine. But we are no longer anti pull-ups. So for whoever's been with me for a couple years, I'm sure you're probably shocked at that. But times change, things change. I finally did it with my own child. So, perspectives obviously change, and that's fine, right? But other than that, obviously we're not going to expect them to wear underwear overnight unless they're consistently waking up dry. Then you can, that's your choice. But some children are still in overnight diapers until 4, sometimes even 5 or 6. Like we've seen it all. So that's definitely not a concern. We're really focusing on the awake time when your child's awake. So the next slide is just going to be the links of some of the materials that I described. And then the last two quick portions before we get to questions and answers are just kind of like a summary of what can affect the child's process and their progress with this toilet training. So two types of factors, obviously environmental, everything that's external. And then you have the internal factors. So environmental factors, what's going to affect your child's progress? Us, like honestly, us. We have to be very just honest with ourselves and know that most of the time during difficult situations with our children, it's us, the adult, that creates ourself as the obstacle in a lot of these situations. So I just want us to be, very aware of us as the role of the adult, what we can do to help better these experiences with our children in all regards, not just toileting. So we need to be consistent. We have to stick to a routine. So that's why I'm saying if you do go the route of doing pull-ups and diapers over long weekends, or just because it's more consistent for you, you have to understand that it's going to have repercussions, and that you have to understand that you have to put more work and effort if you're going to take that route. So just being honest with yourself is very important. And I always tell our teachers here as well that we have to, really try our best to help these children be on a consistent routine when they start toilet training. And our reaction, I think our reaction says a lot as the adult, whether it's toileting or whether it's just, the way we react to certain behaviors. But if we make a big deal about every single accident that our child has, it's going to impact them emotionally, mentally. Like I said, they're going to feel your disappointment. They're going to then, once they get older, these 2.5-year-olds are smart, I'm telling you. Once they get older and they really understand that they have control, they have a will, they're going to use it against you. And toileting and eating, those are the two things that I can guarantee you these families struggle with the most. It's because those are the two things that these children have 200% control of. We cannot control what they eat. We cannot control what they want to eat. And we cannot control when they need to pee or poop. That's just life. And we need to accept that. So that's why we need to make sure as the adult, we're setting a good example of, hey, he wet his underwear. He had a BM in his underwear. That's okay. That's part of the process. If you keep reacting to it, they might start kind of holding back. They might start regressing a little bit, A, because they're scared, or B, they're looking for your reaction. So if you don't give them a reaction from the beginning, they have nothing to look forward to. You don't set that expectation for them. So you really have to make sure that you're very, just as hard as it is, I'm telling you, it's very difficult. Put your poker face on. If they've pooped, this is the 12th day in a row in their underwear, you just got to say, yep, your underwear is dirty. Let's go change it. And then you can go up into your room by yourself and get frustrated, but don't show your child, because that's kind of what they're looking for. It's cause and effect. They're looking for consequences. They're trying to see what they can push, what happens, especially once they approach 2.5 and 3. So keep that in mind. Other environmental factors, change in routine. If you have visitors coming into town, if you have a parent on a work trip and they're missing, let us know. Let your caregiver know. Any type of routine like that, a change in routine like that, can affect your child socially, emotionally, especially their toileting. So be very transparent with those type of changes. If you're a travel bug and you like to go everywhere during the weekends, just know, try and refrain from that during the first month or two of starting this toileting process, just to get your child comfortable first with the actual, toilet and relating their body to it before you keep changing all these toilets and bathrooms on them, because that can easily affect them as well. And the last one are internal factors. So obviously, these children, go through natural developmental milestones that we cannot control. No matter what we do, we cannot control them. So the toileting process always has ups and a lot of downs. It's a roller coaster, but that's very normal. And we've just got to stay consistent with the routine to help them get back on track. And like I mentioned, through the process, they're going to find what they can control. So that's something to also kind of observe and take in, look into, that once they find that, once they know that they can control this process and they can make you angry and frustrated, they're going to use it to their advantage. And they're going to try and make it more difficult than it really should be. And I think that's it. There's a couple other common questions on this next slide that parents typically ask. So for example, you will Google potty training, toilet training, and so many different things pop up. Where do you start? What do you do? There's so many books like the Oh Crap method. There's so many Montessori books out there and just traditional child development books that describe different processes. I'm just saying that from our experience, from me specifically working with this age group in this process, for almost 12 years now, this is just what we found works. It's the most practical way. There's no beating around the bush. You go straight into it and you call it a day. And that's just kind of why we found this process to be so successful. So for example, what if you are naked? What if your child's naked for 2 consecutive days at home or a full week? Does it help? Yeah, whether they're naked or in underwear, as long as you're focused on this process at home, you're going to see progress. So that's kind of the response to that question. We answered the one about pull-ups. We've come into situations where we've had families that just weren't quite ready to do it at home, but we here at school really thought that it was beneficial for the child to start toileting. There have been times where we just recommended, especially if the child was older, that we focus on toileting here at school until you as a family get situated and comfortable at home. Because, and it's only because they're with us for majority of the week. That's why. That's the only reason why. Otherwise, if they were solely at home or if they were a part-time child, we would recommend that we would do it at the same time. But if your child is full day, 5 days a week with us, we've made the accommodations of focusing on toileting here, and then you guys adapt the process at home when you guys are ready. So that is an option. And like I said, there's so many other methods of toileting that I can't even keep up with. But this is just, this is kind of what we've come up with and what we've seen, the most progress with. So that's why we like to do these workshops, because it's a universal method, and it's pretty easy. So let me take a look at the chat box. Ooh, that's a good one. Really quick. Real toilets versus potty training toilets. What do we recommend? The real ones, for sure. Especially not just because we're approaching it with the Montessori philosophy, but it's just a realistic, practical look at things. Your child is not going to use that small potty for the rest of his life. So we always ensure that the way that we approach our young children is providing them with the most realistic and practical experiences from day one. So starting with the real toilet that you have at home and just getting a seat adapter, which I'll include the link to also. But putting that seat adapter on top of your real toilets at home with a little step stool so they can assist themselves, that's definitely the best way to go. Because when you think about it, if your child is having, I've heard this so many times, you have your little training potty, the little plastic one in the bathroom. They're successful on the plastic one, but they refuse to use the big one. You created that speed bump there. You created that obstacle, which you could absolutely avoid from day one. When you set that limit and that boundary of, hey, this is where we're going to use the toilet on this big one with the seat, that's it. You're not giving the option of using a smaller one. So again, from the adult's perspective, just first real, the expectation and practical way to go is just expose them straight to an adult toilet, but get the little seat adapter for it. What else? Sitting and standing. So we do not recommend any type of standing yet. First of all, our ultimate goal is just for our children to align their bodily functions with this external item. So that's our first goal. We just want to make sure they understand that everything that happens with your body gets eliminated here. But let's sit down to do it because A, it's going to be a lot cleaner. And B, it's just a lot simpler. They're able to do everything in one in a seating position. Believe it or not, the older boys, they're just going to naturally pick it up. You don't have to teach them. You don't have to show them. They're just going to come into school. They're going to come home one day and they're just going to want to stand. And that's it. It's usually around 3 when they start seeing, daddy do it more, or the older children start doing it more. That's where they pick it up and they're physically they're able to. So I wouldn't recommend teaching them right now, especially in the beginning. Just wait until they naturally start asking about it or doing it on their own. Yes, highly recommend that your child sees you guys using the toilet at home. So you're going to have to get rid of your privacy door for a little bit, get rid of your pride for a little bit, keep the door open, not even necessarily invite your child into the restroom, but just leave it open, like on your main level. If you have, like a guest bathroom or something, leave the door open every time you use it. And your children are so curious. They're going to be very interested and they just naturally observe. So just obviously make sure you have proper etiquette in the bathroom as well, and it should be fine. But yes, highly recommend, because we teach through modeling, right? So that's definitely a great thing. Let's see. How long is it okay to use pull-ups as a transition period? There really is no time frame. It really depends on your child's capabilities. Are they able to physically pull up and down the pull-up by themselves? So you wouldn't want to start the pull-ups until they're really showing interest in the toilet or trying to remove their diaper by themselves. That's where I recommend kind of starting the pull-ups. And then once they start successfully using the toilet consistently, you see all those signs of readiness, then you transition them out from the pull-ups into some cotton underwear. But I think that's it. Some of the beginning messages were the slides. Sorry. Let's see. I think that might be it. So nighttime. So nighttime is a tough one. Like I said, especially in more recent times, I've definitely noticed the age of children who stay dry at night have gotten older. It's increased from like 3s to now 4s and 5s are still wearing like the overnight diapers and pull-ups and things like that. But the only thing, again, we have the control of just seeing what we can provide them as far as, how to help prevent them from, wetting themselves at night. But other than that, it's their control. And when you think about it, the child is not unconscious, but they're not fully aware when they're sleeping. So that's something we definitely don't have control of. But what we can control is what they consume or what they eat before bedtime. Limiting, some of the liquids, cutting it back to about 1.5 hours to 2 hours before bed, not drinking a water bottle or milk, as part of their bed transition or their bed routine is going to be important as well. Making sure they use the toilet right before they go to sleep. Those are also really important. But it's going to happen on their own time. There's nothing we can do to make them wake up dry. It's just something that they get on their own. Do you wake up your child to use the bathroom? Nope, you do not. We don't, especially at nighttime. During nap time and nighttime, you don't want to disturb their sleep because you're kind of giving them a different perception of the purpose of using the toilet. You want the child to understand that they have control over it and it's their own bodily function that they need to learn how to adapt to. So we definitely don't want to wake them up, especially over. Nobody wants to wake up a child in the middle of the night, but we definitely don't want to wake them up to use the restroom because we want them to naturally get that feeling on their own. And believe it or not, it happens pretty quick. Some children within like the first 2 weeks, they either wake up dry consistently or they'll start waking you up in the middle of the night because they already got that feeling of needing to use the restroom. Let's see. Are there any other questions? Don't forget, if you're not part of, well, even if you're part of LOMA or not, if you would like any emails of the links, if you're not able to pick up a copy of these slides, send your email in the chat box and I will be sending this to you as soon as we exit the Zoom call. Perfect, got some emails. We love to do, so if you're new to LOMA, if you're not part of LOMA, we love doing these types of workshops at least twice a year, more frequent if possible, just on many, many different topics. So hopefully you guys can join us on our next one. We like to make all of them live to the public. So I'll probably announce our next workshop and webinar in the next couple weeks. But if we don't have any more questions, that's it. Thank you guys for joining. I will share our YouTube link where this recording will be shared as well. And until then, good luck. We're an open door. Let us know if you have any questions about the toileting experience. And other than that, we will see you. Have a good day, everybody. See ya.